You know, if there's one thing I've heard time and time again is that there's only so many good Sonic games, and if we're just talking about Sonic Team made ones, I'd be hard pressed to argue. The thing is though is that there's so much more to this franchise than just those games. Sonic Riders is a game that had a lot going against it right out of the gate. It was released in 2006, which, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, was just a fantastic time for this franchise. To make matters worse, this is not a conventional racing game. How do I put this? People were going in expecting Mario Kart, and what they ended up getting was a skill curve akin to F-Zero. So today I've wrote down a list of reasons as to why I love this game and why it's one of my favourite Sonic games, despite its many issues. And we start with one of the very first things you see, the Sega logo. This intro. I remember I was mesmerised by this as a kid. Outside of Pokemon, this was one of my first exposures to anime art. The animation here was done by Production IG, responsible for such anime as Attack on Titan, Ghost in the Shell and End of Evangelion, and they're even responsible for the anime cutscenes in both versions of Persona 5. If someone were to ask me what I would want a Sonic the Hedgehog movie to look like, this is right on the money. To this day, I still can't understand why Hollywood is allergic to 2D animation. I mean, why do you feel the need to take animated properties and turn them into live action? I get that it can be cheaper a lot of the time, but with animation, you've got free liberty to do whatever you want. That's part of its whimsy. If you can think it, you can draw it. Whereas with live action, you're always bound by the limitations of current technology. I'm not knocking the Sonic movie we did eventually get, I quite enjoyed it actually, but I know what my preferences would have been. It is criminal that this is one of the only times we've gotten to see modern Sonic drawn like this. The noodle-limbed, more detailed designs are super suited to anime, it's insane. It's got edge, but it's never edgy, if you know what I mean. Like, it's taking Sonic's old 90s cartoon persona and updating it for the mid-2000s. Number 2, the story's fucking dumb and I love it. If there's one trend I hate about 2010 Sonic is the sheer amount of apathy and insecurity. Lost World and Forces are the biggest offenders of this, no shock there. It feels like they want to push the boat out and tell a compelling story, but then they don't want to go too far, otherwise the people who hate Sonic will just continue to hate Sonic. Bear in mind that when I call Sonic Riders' story dumb, I mean that as the biggest compliment possible. The whole premise is just batshit insane. So you have these bird people who are actually the descendants of Babylonian genies, and boy, the game will not let you forget about it.
Babylon. Babylon? Babylon, 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 Babylonians, Babylon, Babylon.
So anyway, Jason Griffith beats Jason Griffith in a race. So in order to get back at Jason Griffith does what's called a pro gamer move and gives Eggman one of the Chaos Emeralds in order to race in this tournament as his entry fee, so he can prove that he's the fastest period, despite the fact that he's only become interested in hoverboard racing a few moments prior because he doesn't like it when other people are better at things than him. This entire story just started because Sonic's being a spiteful dick.
Not just a race, but a special race to see who's the fastest.
That is the literal definition of a race, you robot dick. Later on in the story, we meet this purple bird lady who plants a bomb on Sonic's hoverboard that's so visible, even 6-year-old Jack noticed it. And 6-year-old Jack is a fucking idiot.
Sorry, Sonic. I just need to fine-tune a few things, then your extreme gear will be at 100%.
Oh god damn it, Tails. Long story short, Green Birdman ends up summoning Babylon Guarding using the power of cube technology. Sonic delivers one of the worst one-liners I've conceived.
Even without wings, I can still fly!
What? We beat a genie, Eggman gets a new carpet, and we all ride off into the sunset. The end. What a load of trash. Can we get more stories like this, please? Sonic Riders' story may be utter nonsense, but it is at the very least memorable. It doesn't try to pander to everyone with constantly fluctuating tones, nor is it complete nothingness like Generations. It's a fun, silly adventure that doesn't make too much sense if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, but it's fun to watch regardless. It's also worth mentioning that this game probably has some of the best cutscene animation in the series. I know that's not a high bar, but you know, stay with me. To me, it's the little things, like when Amy tries to flirt with Sonic and he immediately goes to Tails to change the subject, or when Tails tries to explain something scientific and Knuckles' brain just can't handle it. How about the part where the game speeds up Wave's lecture while Jet fucks off elsewhere? Moments like this are prevalent throughout the entire game. When I called Sonic Riders a funny game, I wasn't just referring to its dumber moments. That's just the cherry on top. This game is genuinely funny and understands just how nonsensical it is and uses it to its full advantage. It certainly beats, haha, look at how shit we are. Please, notice us, Aaron Senpai. Oh god, please. We're still relevant, please. If you like Sonic Adventure era stories, then this is right up your street. There's even 2 separate stories ending in a final boss fight. There's a final boss fight in a racing game. This game can be very misleading. Seeing Sonic on the cover, your expectations are probably another happy, approachable mascot racer, when in actuality what you're getting is something like SSX. So before every race you need to run out of the start gate. You can't go too fast, otherwise you'll get zapped by the barrier, but you also can't go too slow, otherwise you won't get a good running boost. Once out on the track, there's a few things you need to keep in mind. This bar on the side here is your air. The rate at which you consume air will depend on the type of gear you're using. For reference, hoverboards consume an average amount, bikes consume an above average amount, and skates consume a below average amount. Everything you do revolves around your air meter. When coming up to a trick ramp, you can hold X to build up pressure. If you're holding forward as you jump, you'll go further, whereas if you hold backwards, you'll go higher. Keep that in mind, as there are certain shortcuts you can only get to using this information. Said crucial piece of information being something the game doesn't go out of its way to tell you, which is a flaw that we will get to. There are no power-ups to speak of outside of the occasional speed shoes. Instead, you have a boost, which can be used at any time in exchange for a large chunk of air. You can gain some of it back, however, if you manage to knock into one of the other racers. There's also a tornado move which is activated using the shoulder buttons. It's slow, uses too much air and kills all your momentum. Don't use it. You need to make sure that you manage your air at all times, because each course has many sharp turns, requiring drifting, which consumes a crap ton of air. There's a very real risk and reward element to boosting that prevents it from becoming broken. You could go for that overtake, but can you guarantee you'll hit your target? And if you don't, will you have enough air to make it to that next jump ramp? Should you run out of air, you'll be forced to run on foot and into the pit stop, which intentionally controls like shit. Also, don't ask me how you can run out of air considering it's all around. I mean, come on guys, I don't make the fucking rules. Along with your gear choice and air consumption, you also need to take into account the character type as well. Continuing on from Sonic Heroes, we have 3 different types: speed, fly and power. Speed types are the only ones that can grind on rails, flying types can fly through boost rings, and power types can knock away obstacles on the track. Performing any of these actions on a track will refill your air gauge, with certain tracks being tailored towards certain types. Rings are also a very important collectible to keep in mind, as they will allow you to level up. Leveling up will not only enhance your boost, but the amount of air that you can have in a tank. The rings you earn can then be cashed in later for more extreme gears. This is important, as not only does each gear have different stats, but they can also carry one of the 3 major character abilities. So for example, if I pair Sonic with the magic carpet, not only will I be able to grind on rails, but I'll also be able to fly through these hoops as well. All of these factors combined will lead to some pretty tough choices mid-race. You could take the shorter route, meaning less air consumption, but you'll also have fewer opportunities for tricks, and therefore getting said air back. Now if all that seems complicated to you, well, that's because it is. How much of it does the game decide to teach you? Well, outside of a brief tutorial video, nothing! You're pretty much left to your own devices to figure this shit out, and I think that's the Achilles heel of this game. I can understand somebody not wanting to give this game the time of day, considering Sonic's state in the mid-2000s, but trust me when I say it gets so much better once you're past that initial hurdle. What you'll find after might just be one of the most rewarding and addicting racing games you will ever play. What I've noticed about a lot of Sonic and Sega games in general is that they're rarely ever fun starting out, and I know that is a little bit weird coming from a Sega fan, but just stay with me. They always carry a certain amount of clunk with them, whether that be Knights' unconventional control scheme, the stiff controls of Jet Set Radio, or indeed the grueling process of trying to maintain your speed the first time you played Sonic the Hedgehog. I bring this up because I don't think there's a single Sega game that I've enjoyed thoroughly my first time through. All of these games were at one point something that I failed to see the appeal of. After a while, however, mechanics that I once thought were obtuse and non-intuitive actually started to become second nature to me. See, Sega games are built with long-term investment in mind. It's this philosophy that makes so many of their games just so damn fun to play. They are an arcade developer first and foremost, after all. Sonic Riders is no different in this regard. When you do eventually wrap your head around all the different microsystems this game is going on, the results of each race will depend on your skill, and your skill alone. There are no external methods of rubber banding like bullet bills or blue shells. If you know the track and you play your cards right, you can dominate. Crushing my competition in Sonic Riders is a very similar feeling to when I get the highest rank in the 3D games. You don't get anything for it, but it just feels good to know that you're at the top of your game, that all that practice and commitment you've put in has paid off. Unlocks can be a great way of incentivizing your players to keep going, especially if it's a particularly challenging game like this one. So when young me heard that he could play as Shadow the Hedgehog, well, he knew he just had to finish it. Not really much to say here other than unlocks are cool and that I missed them. Please bring them back. I'm not joking when I say that this is probably one of the most well-rounded Sonic games out there, and as far as I can tell, and by that I mean I did one quick Google search, this was all done by Sonic Team, which is astonishing when you consider 06 was also in development at the same time. Call me crazy, but it seems like they put more care and attention into this quirky little racing game than they did the main headliner of the 15th anniversary. Now, what can I bitch about? Well, apart from the obvious accessibility issues, I don't think the tracks are all that spectacular. I mean, they're fine, but the game relies too heavily on the type system, which doesn't really open up many opportunities for some crazy universal shortcuts. Thematically, the tracks are also pretty boring. A futuristic city, a canyon, a factory, a forest, some sandy ruins. There's a really small amount of them too, and half of them are just remixes of existing tracks. The Sega themed ones are pretty sweet though, those ones are great, I do love those. There are other modes that I didn't mention, like the mission mode, which is generally not worth doing, quite repetitive, although you do get a couple of Sega cameo characters, as well as a 3D playable Super Sonic before Sonic Colors, so if you want to check that out, I recommend using Action Replay, although you didn't hear that from me. The tag team mode is also something I have next to no experience with, as it requires you to have a second person pretty much, and the chances of me getting a friend or family member to do that is pretty much zero. I mean, ignoring the fact that this is a 10-year-old game that nobody really cares about anymore, the game's just too complex for me to get a newcomer into this. It's so tragic because this game has bucket loads of potential, but because it never came out at a time where online play was the norm, it missed its chance at forming a competitive player base. I do want to quickly shout out Sonic Riders Tournament Edition, a fan mod of the original that rebalances the game to make it more competitive, as well as finally introducing online play. While we're on the subject, they've also got a mod for the second game too to make it play more like the first. Sonic Riders regraded that. If the trailers are anything to go by, it looks really fun and something I wish I had the ability to play. Look it up and give it some love. As for the other games in the Riders series, I used to be a big fan of the second game, but I've gone off it over time. They tried to make the game more accessible, but in doing so they sacrificed a lot of what made the original fun. Maybe I'll cover it, maybe I won't. As for Free Riders, while I'd absolutely love to do anything possible to cover that game, I can't. And I don't mean like I don't have a Kinect so therefore I can't do it. I mean, no, I literally physically can't. And I'm very, very disappointed about that. After this, the series just kind of died, because as we know, if you create a shitty, gimmick-heavy entry into your series that nobody asked for, it means that nobody wants that series anymore, clearly. I do hope that Sega gives this series a second chance at some point, or at the very least have a CTR style remake with tracks and characters from all three games. I don't play many online games, but if that were to come to pass, I would certainly make an exception. Till next time, take care.